In today's video, we're going to be talking about pronunciation. We're going to be looking at the Hyundai Tucson, which for me really baffles my mind. See, Hyundai instead of Hyundai or Hyundai, as we know in the UK, and Tucson, which really sounds French to me. So therefore I could have gone with Aujourd'hui on va faire un review du Hyundai Tucson. It just flows a little bit better in my brain. Anyway, I'm going to really struggle with pronunciation, so definitely don't slate me down in the comment section below, but we are looking at the plug-in hybrid model. Now it starts from roughly £41,000, which is roughly a £4,000 premium over the equivalent trim. And of course, if you take out the PHEV element out of it, then it actually starts from roughly £35,000 to £36,000, at least at the time of filming and in the UK. So in this review, we're going to see if the Tucson is actually worth its price tag and to see how it compares to some of the alternative PHEVs. So to kick off, I would like to point out that there's a few different trim levels on the Hyundai Tucson. Now, the entry-level model, which is a hybrid or a mild hybrid, starts from the SE Connect, and therefore means that if you want the plug-in hybrid, you'll have to go for the N line or above. Indeed, over here, the PHEV is available with the N line, the Premium, the N line S, the Ultimate, and the Ultimate with a tech pack. Now I know that seems like quite a lot to choose from, but unlike some of its competitors, you haven't got like a multitude of different options to choose between each of the trim levels. Really, the trim levels effectively determine what you're getting with the car. So in my opinion, I think it's done in a little bit of a better fashion. Now, regardless of the trim levels, you will be pleased to know that all the PHEV models have the same sort of powertrain. You've got a 1.6 litre front mounted engine, you've got an electric motor, and you've got a 13.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which of course has got that plug-in function as well. Now, in terms of fuel efficiency, because this is going to be really important to a lot of people, the manufacturer mentions that you will be able to get 30 to 40 miles of range, which of course therefore will affect your fuel efficiency. However, from my own mixed driving test, I netted between 20 to 30 miles, which is a little bit lackluster in the PHEV market. Now, the reason there's a bit of a discrepancy in terms of my mileage claim is because the vehicle, other than operating in pure EV mode, actually has a self-charging function, which is quite rare in the PHEV market. So yes, indeed, if you were to run out or running low, or indeed when the vehicle deems that it's a good time to recharge the vehicle while you're on the move, such as let's say on the motorway, then it will feed power as like a generator from the engine straight into the battery pack. Therefore meaning that when you're going to be in a situation such as like right now, I'm in the city and pottering around town, I'm actually driving in fully EV mode. So I don't have to hear the engine trickling away, and also means that I'm not emitting any sort of harmful fumes. So I think that's really clever technology that's been done by Hyundai, because they've actually thought of the different scenarios. Yes, you could plug in. Yes, you can drive in fully electric mode. Yes, you can drive with the petrol engine. And yes, you can drive with both as well. So great sort of thinking. However, what about when it comes to the actual real MPG figure? This is the most important thing when it comes to a plug-in hybrid, or any sort of hybrid, should I say. Now, here the manufacturer has a ridiculous claim, but from my own mixed driving test, I actually netted around 40 MPG, sometimes stretching to around 45 MPG. Now, in all honesty, that is quite poor. If you look at some of its competitors under the same sort of testing methodology, I was hitting north of 40 to 50 MPG, sometimes even breaking the 60 to 70 MPG mark, such as the likes of the Citroen C5X Hybrid, the Cupra Formentor. You've also got the likes of the Honda HR-V, all great vehicles in their own right, but these vehicles really do bolster better efficiency, and it left me a little bit disappointed when I was looking at my MPG figure and I was seeing it actually go down, in other words, after I'd run out of electric range. Now, indeed, it isn't exactly the best when it comes to fuel efficiency. And here, if you weren't considering any of the alternatives, should you be buying the Hyundai Tucson PHEV? Well, in this respect, it really depends as to the overall commutes that you're doing. If they're regularly under 30 to 50 miles, then I would say the PHEV model probably makes the most sense, purely because you'll be able to run on EV mode predominantly, and also able to really bolster that overall MPG figure. If, however, it's the opposite, then I would honestly suggest you to look at the hybrid or mild hybrid instead. Now I appreciate this is coming from a channel that's called TotallyEV, so therefore I would normally be recommending a fully electric vehicle or, for example, a plug-in hybrid over a regular mild hybrid, but I have to be really honest with you guys because I'm a consumer myself and I want to make sure that you're making the right purchasing decision. And in this respect, if you've got your heart set on the Hyundai Tucson, then the PHEV model doesn't make too much sense if you're doing longer journeys. Now, on the note of the plug-in hybrid model, in order to recharge it, in other words via a Type 2 port, it will take you 1 hour and 45 minutes, and that's because it has got a 7.4 kilowatt onboard charger. If, however, you plug it in via a regular 3-pin socket, it will take you a whopping 6 hours and 30 minutes instead. So all worthwhile consideration, and hopefully all of this information should help you make your own informed purchasing decision. Now, the only caveat of opting for the hybrid or mild hybrid model is that it's less powerful than the plug-in hybrid. Indeed, the latter has got a front-mounted 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which combines with a 66.9 kilowatt motor and a 13.8 kilowatt hour battery to dispatch 195 kilowatts or 261 horsepower. You've got 350 Newton meters of torque, whereby you've also got 304 Newton meters of torque, which is dispatched from its EV portion only. So therefore, when you're driving in EV mode, you still have got plenty of grunt. Now, using Race Logic's Performance Box Touch, I had it tested from 0 to 20 miles an hour in 1.88 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 2.9 seconds, and 0 to 60 miles an hour in 7.53 seconds, which is actually faster than the manufacturer's claim. Equally, going from 50 to 70 miles an hour, it's certainly no slouch, where it came in and clocked at 3.7 seconds. Perfect for doing any sort of overtaking maneuver. As for its top speed, it is rated at 119 miles an hour, which should certainly suffice for a lot of individuals. Now, I appreciate those people looking at the Hyundai Tucson are not going to be putting their foot down to the metal regularly, but nonetheless it's good to know that it is no slouch. Equally, in its sport mode preset, it stiffens up the steering wheel and betters the accelerator response, making a little bit more depth to country road driving. Now, on that note, the vehicle does suffer from a little bit of body roll, but in the grander scheme of things, for a vehicle of its class, it's actually not too bad. It does still really feel planted on the ground. Of course, here in comparison to more sportier alternatives, it's no match, be it in terms of the driving dynamics or the one-to-one driver's input. It just really can't compete with the likes of, let's say, the BMW X2 or, let's say, the Cupra Formentor. Now, what does really stand out and is quite disappointing is the fact that the vehicle does have a pretty sloppy 6-speed automatic transmission. In this respect, I felt it actually did not respond that quickly, specifically when it came to manual gear changes via the flappy paddles found behind the steering wheel, or even when it came to initiating a kickdown, for example on the motorway. It took a little bit of while to respond and just left me a little bit disheartened. Now, similarly, I was left a bit disappointed by the overall driving comfort. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not too bad in the grander scheme of things and certainly should not be a deal breaker, but it's just something I thought to highlight. Here, while driving on the motorway, I noticed that the suspension system felt a little bit uneven, and therefore translated to micro movements coming through the seats and therefore the chassis, and also I could even feel a bit of jerkiness coming through the steering wheel, almost like it had wheel balancing issues. But that wasn't quite the case because this also occurred at lower speeds. Indeed, over here it just felt a little bit unsettled. And furthermore, if you look at some of the alternatives that offer adaptive air suspension systems as standard, it certainly cannot compete. Now, it is a shame that the vehicle has a slightly unsettled driving experience, because both at low and higher speeds the cabin noise is kept down to a minimum. In fact, if you want a detailed breakdown of the sound measurements that are recorded within the Tucson, make sure you check out my dedicated audio review up on your pop banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Now, this does perfectly bring me onto its interior design, and here I've got no real complaints. The stitching work, the choice of materials, the upholstery are all really good, and certainly do stand out in comparison to cheaper alternatives. Although you could consider that given the price point of the Tucson, which starts from over £41,000, at least for the plug-in hybrid model, it doesn't quite compete with the likes of Audi or indeed Range Rover offerings. Nonetheless, do let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Now, while its overall looks can't quite compete with some of the more premium offerings out there, the overall practicality is certainly still there. And indeed over here, Hyundai has retained physical buttons on the steering wheel, making it quite handy when you're adjusting, let's say, your cruise control settings or indeed changing your media. Furthermore, you've also got a dedicated climate control menu, which can be found just below the infotainment system. And indeed over here, you have got touch sensitive input, which isn't exactly my favorite, and I would have preferred haptic feedback or indeed traditional physical buttons and dials, but it's still great to see that you've got a dedicated area for this rather than having to faff around with the infotainment system like you'd find on some of its more modern rivals. Now on that note, the 10.25-inch display is very vivid, intuitively laid out, and gives you a plethora of different options. Better still, it also is very responsive and supports Android Auto and Apple CarPlay over a wired format only. Alas, at the time of filming and in the UK, wireless support isn't quite there. Equally, the third-party mobile operating systems do not integrate turn-based navigation data to the instrument cluster, which is quite a shame, something that you might actually see in some of the alternatives out there. But of course, if you opt for using the built-in navigation, then you'll find that this data is fed through to the instrument cluster. And here, the 10.25-inch display does provide you all the key driving information that you would require, and is also customizable to a certain degree. The only complaint here when it comes to the use of technology is there is no head-up display, be it available as an option or even integrated as standard in the more expensive trim levels. Now to expand on that point, there is no means of upgrading the 6-speaker audio system on the entry-level N-line trim. If, however, you go for one of the other trim levels, you'll find an 8+1 Krell system, and this integrates 2 additional audio drivers at the center of the dashboard and a subwoofer in the boot, which will certainly bolster the low-end response. If you want a detailed breakdown of the audio system and indeed what it does entail, make sure you check out our detailed audio review, which yet again will be found on your pop banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Now, no matter which trim level you go for, you want to be plugged into the infotainment system in order for you to attain the best sort of audio fidelity. And here there is 2 USB Type-A ports found at the front of the center console, one of which will allow you data communication. Elsewhere, you have got a 12-volt socket which provides additional charge, for example, to a dash cam, and then you've also got a QI wireless charging bay that comes fitted as standard across all the PHEV models. Similarly, over here, you have got a further 2 USB Type-A ports at the rear of the cabin, which can be handy to provide charge to your rear occupants. So past all of this, what about when it comes to storage? Well, here the Tucson is actually really impressive. You've got a pretty sizable glove box, and then you've got the door bins, all of which will accommodate a 500ml bottle, while the front 2 will also accommodate a small to medium-sized purse and a wallet. Now, as for the center console, on either side, you've got these small little areas which can be handy for placing a smartphone. Towards the top of it, you've got 2 cup holders, and then further down, you've got a pretty sizable compartment found underneath the armrest. Speaking of which, at the rear of the cabin, you've also got a pull-down armrest, which does also reveal 2 cup holders. Now, of course, when it comes to storage, we have to talk about its boot capacity. Now, in the N-Line S and the Ultimate, which is on review, you've actually got an electric tailgate. And in order to initiate it, there's a button found within the cabin on the remote, and also a button found just above the number plate. And when I press it, you'll be able to hear a beeping sound. And unfortunately, there is no means, at least at the time of filming and in the UK, to actually disable said function. So therefore, each time you're opening or closing the tailgate, it's going to make that sound, and therefore might be a little bit cumbersome, specifically if you're coming back at night and you might be worried about disturbing your neighbors. Now, nonetheless, when it comes to the overall practicality of it, it's actually pretty good. It's got that hatchback design. As someone who's just under 6 foot, I've got no problems when it comes to loading in and out goods. Better still, there's no sort of raised boot lip, and you've got a completely flat loading bay. And yes, that also includes when you prop down the seats, which have got a 40-20-40 rear split folding design, which is certainly appreciated when it comes to taking elongated goods. Equally, if you're going to be frequently utilizing the full capacity of the boot, you'll be pleased to know that there is a release latch for the seats that can be found in the boot, and therefore means that you don't have to shimmy around towards the rear seats and prop them down each time. Now, as for the subject of practicality, there is also a 12-volt socket and also some fixing points, and there's also an underfloor compartment, which should suffice just about for your charging cable. However, I'd probably suggest you taking it in a separate bag, which does come included with all PHEV models. Now, here in terms of the underfloor compartment, it is actually quite limited, although there is a space to place the boot load cover, which is, of course, retractable and removable. Now, unfortunately, here in the PHEV model, it doesn't quite fit in place because it actually raises the boot floor. So therefore, it seems to be potentially of a mistrick over here from the Hyundai Motor Group, but nonetheless, it's just a small little point that I thought I should highlight. Now past that, when it comes to its capacity, you've got 558 litres, and this is down from 616 litres from its non-PHEV sibling. As for when the seats are propped down, it gives you 1,737 litres, which is down from 1,799 litres. Indeed, you have got plenty of space, and it should be perfectly fine for most consumers. Now, while the sheer amount of space that's available within the Hyundai Tucson is impressive, what I absolutely love is the comfort within the cabin. So as someone who's just under 6 foot, I can pretty much stretch out my legs. I've got fantastic amount of headroom, and I've even got reclining seats. Now, I'm not really sure why anyone would want to use it in said position, but of course, if you're going to recline all the way back, you can really be comfortable. Better still, the seats themselves are very accommodating and soft, both at the rear and at the front of the cabin. Now, what I also like is the fact that the manufacturer has optimized the rear footwell design, and indeed over here the transmission tunnel has been kept down to a minimum. Therefore meaning those people who are sat in the rear middle seat won't be left uncomfortable specifically for those longer journeys. The same couldn't be said about some of its competitors, so kudos to Hyundai. Now, apart from that, I would like to say that you have got a rear privacy glass fitted on certain trims, including these little retractable sun blinds, which are very much appreciated, and then you've also got some additional cutouts behind which draw in some additional light. On that note, you've also got a panoramic glass roof that comes fitted as standard in the N-Line S and the Ultimate trims. The latter also integrates a slide and tilt functionality. Now, past all of this, I should have a quick word about the front two seats. And here, they're manually adjustable and are also heated as standard. You've also got an electric lumbar support for the driver. As for the steering wheel, it becomes heated in the premium trims and above, therefore is not available in the standard N-Line trim. And as for the Ultimate trim, you've got electric and ventilated front seats, which is certainly appreciated specifically in warmer climates. And you've also got a driver memory function with heated rear outer seats as well. So moving swiftly on, we get onto its exterior design. And here I really do love what Hyundai have achieved over here. The front of the vehicle certainly does look the part and stands out in comparison to what else you can find out there in the market. That's namely due to its headlight design. As for the side, you've got these 19-inch alloys that come fitted as standard, giving it a little bit of that extra sporty flair. However, I'm not too fond of the non-body coloured wheel arches and side skirts, but given they don't protrude too much from the vehicle, they don't detract from the overall side profile. Now, as for the rear, you've got a really nice seamless look, and that's namely due to its tail lights. They feed seamlessly into the boot and therefore give it a very nice sort of profile. Yet again, I've got no complaints whatsoever with its exterior design, but of course looks are somewhat subjective, so make sure you share your own opinions down in the comment section below. Now, as for your colour options, it comes in red as standard. If however you want one of the other colour finishes, it'll set you back between £300 and £665. As for your towing capacity, it's rated at 1,350 kilograms and 750 kilograms for a braked and unbraked trailer respectively. And as for your roof load capacity, it's rated at 100 kilograms. Now, past the vehicle's exterior design, it actually perfectly brings me onto crash safety. And here it was tested by Euro NCAP in 2021, and the rating is still valid. Indeed, over here it scored a full 5 out of 5 stars, getting 86% in adult occupancy test and 87% in the child occupancy test. Although it did score a little bit low in the safety assist score at 70%. Now, indeed, over here in the entry-level N-Line trim, not to be confused with the N-Line S, you've got basic cruise control. Then in the other trim levels, including, for example, the Ultimate on review, you've got adaptive cruise control. It does a fantastic job of regulating your distance between the leading vehicle and takes away the stress when you're on the motorway. Better still, you've got speed limit assist, forward collision monitoring system, lane assist and lane follow assist, all of which come bundled as standard across the entire trim range. Now, it's great to see that the lane assist can also easily be disabled on the fly by long pressing a button on the steering wheel, and therefore means that if you're living around the country roads, you don't have to worry about disabling it or faffing around with the infotainment system. Somewhat of a complaint I have about some of its competitors, and this is somewhat of a requirement from Euro NCAP, thus gets enabled each time you step foot inside the vehicle. Now, past this, it is worth pointing out that in the premium trim, you've got a blind spot warning system. However, in the N-Line S and Ultimate trims, it ups the ante at a blind spot collision avoidance, therefore giving you a little bit of extra peace of mind. Now, it's also worth highlighting that in the top spec trim, you've also got highway drive assist, which I absolutely love. Not only does it regulate the distance thanks to adaptive cruise control, but it also gives you steering support. Therefore, on those really long drives and if you're going cross-country, it means that you can somewhat take your hands off the wheel. Of course, I would never recommend this, but it means that it really is something that you can trust, be it in terms of regulating the distance from the leading vehicle thanks to adaptive cruise control, or indeed meaning that you're not going to be swaying off-piste. Now, of course, you have also got the ability to upgrade this via the Tech Pack, although this is only available in the top spec Ultimate trim. Here, this will bring a round view monitoring system, a blind spot view monitoring system which integrates itself in the instrument cluster, a remote smart park assist, and also park collision avoidance assist. Now, this does perfectly bring me on to parking, and here the visibility at the front and side are absolutely excellent. At the rear, however, it's a little bit more limited, specifically given the fact that the wiper operates from the top rather than the bottom, and therefore doesn't give you a good sort of cleaning radius. Nonetheless, you have got front and rear parking sensors that come fitted as standard and a rear view camera, giving you a little bit of peace of mind when you're reversing. On that note, you've also got rear cross traffic alert in the premium trim and above, therefore it's not present in the entry-level N-line trim. As for your turning circle, it's rated at 10.9 meters, therefore making it actually quite easy to maneuver. So with all that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict. And quite frankly, you can see why the Hyundai Tucson is actually very popular among consumers. It's pretty stylish inside and out. It's got decent driving dynamics and comfort. It's pretty practical with the interior design and also the use of technology. It's bolstered with a huge number of safety assistance systems which come fitted as standard. And you've also got a pretty practical design from the rear occupancy space and the boot. So therefore giving you a pretty complete package. However, if you look at some of the alternatives, some of which we've reviewed and will be down in the description below, you'll find that some of the others actually offer either better driving dynamics, better driving comfort thanks to adaptive air suspension systems, or indeed have got a little bit more of a snazzier interior or exterior design due to the overall premium price tag that the Tucson was actually competing at. £41,000 for the PHEV model, going up to over £45,000, which is what we have on review. It means that you could actually buy yourself, let's say, a Range Rover or indeed an Audi, which might even hold its value a little bit better in the longer run. Now, nonetheless, we'd be curious to know what you make of this vehicle down in the comment section below. And of course, if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.